Hi there, I am Meonicorn, and today I'm back with a book review for A Factual Life by Samuel. This will be a September new release, and I got it from the publisher in exchange of my honest opinion. And I have to say, I got very excited when they contacted me because it's a memoir, and I'm in such a memoir kick lately. I read so many of them, and I enjoyed them a lot. But the excitement of memoirs for me, and also the fact that I got this book for free from the publisher, does not affect my opinion on the book. That's my cat. And I want to say that you can trust me because my book reviews are one of the things that I value the most on my channel. So back to the book. This book, like I said, is a memoir of the author Samuel, and it has been divided into 4 parts, with the first part of the story focused on her grandparents, and the rest of the parts focused on the story of her own, from when she was at the age of 3 to now. I believe she's in her late 40s or 50s. I have to say that the first part was the part that I found the strongest for me because it has lots of information about her families. For example, what did her grandparents do during the First and the Second World War, how a grandmother from Russia and a grandfather from India met during the wartime, and how did the two cultures merge together and formed a family, and other informations about her relatives. And I also found that her grandmother's story was particularly interesting for me. Maybe because for her, her grandmother was like a different culture because she's Russian, or maybe because they have this grandmother and granddaughter bond. So her grandmother told a lot of interesting life stories to her. And also I think although we read a lot of things about the First and the Second World War, most of the books, at least for me, I read was fiction. So reading actual people, what they did in those 2 wars is like a different reading experience for me. Moving to the author's own story, she had, as the title suggested, a pretty fractured life. She was abandoned by her parents at the age of 3, and it's partly because her parents got divorced at that time, and also partly because she's a girl, and it's not worth raising up a girl in India's patriarchy society. So she ended up growing up with her super strict grandfather. And being a girl with no parents is a serious problem in India. That means people have no respect for you, and you cannot go into higher class. And even more, you cannot have blessing when you get married. I would say this book shows a lot of problem in India's society, and I just don't understand why a girl without a parents is not worth people's attention and love. I feel like Samuel's story has so many potential, however, I just didn't find it deep enough. Every time she touches a topic, I feel like she could say more. For example, she talks about how people treated girls in India and how people judge each other by their names, and also sexual assault, and also India community in America. I understand why people don't want to talk a lot about the sexual abuse they got because it traumatized them, and I admire anybody who speaks out. But for other topics, instead of touch the topics and brush them away in the next page, I would really want the authors to discuss more and more deeply. I think I got this impression because I feel like this book was way too emotional for me as a reader. I mean, everybody have the right to be emotional, especially when your life didn't go to the direction that you planned it to be. But as a memoir, I really want to read more about the actual life events and have an emotional reaction of my own instead of being told by the author's emotional all through the book. It's like when you want to eat some grains and have vitamins, you decided to eat a zucchini and discover that 90% of the zucchini was water. By the way, zucchini is a pretty healthy food. Please eat more of them. However, I got pretty touched by the relationship between the author and her grandfather. Her grandfather was a very strict man, and the author inserted a lot of grandfather's diaries into the book. So you get to read little chapters by chapters of her grandfather's diary, and I think they really showed how much love could a grandfather give to his granddaughter. But I was a little annoyed by the fact that her grandmother sort of disappeared after the first section. Maybe because in her family, her grandmother didn't got to say a lot about how to raise a child, but she still exists in the author's life. And I would love to see more of their interactions because, as I mentioned, I thought her grandmother was a pretty interesting people. But the disappearance of her grandmother was not the only awkward thing in this memoir. I feel like there are a lot of jumping and gapped information in this memoir. For example, she would talk about she went to undergraduate school with a degree in English literature, and the next chapter she would talk about she's capable of holding the degree of a professional advertisement person. And as a reader, you were left clueless because you didn't know how does this advertisement thing came from. Until later, you found that she went to graduate school and graduated with a degree in advertisement. And moreover, I would love that if she can explain her certain choices more clear in this book. So overall, the first section of the book feels strong for me, but unfortunately, the rest of the sections feel plain for me, although there were a lot going on. I just feel like if the author could detach herself from all her emotions, this book would be stronger because her story were pretty powerful. And that's it for the review of A Factual Life by Samuel Samuel, and this book will be released a month later on September the 19th. And I hope you find this review helpful, and in the meantime, happy reading. See you next time. Bye!